Hello, welcome to another Booktube video. My name is Ailsa and today I'm going to do my February and March Balancing the Books video. Balancing the Books was started by Emma of Drinking by My Shelf, whose channel I will link to in the description box. I've adapted it slightly to suit my own purposes of trying to cut down my TBR pile. My rules for myself are that each month, for every book that comes into the house, whether it's from the library, whether it's something I've bought or got from friends, review copies, any book that comes into the house, I have to read 2 books that month from my existing stacks of unread books. I didn't film a video in February because although I had no books carried over, no pressure of how many to read, I actually didn't manage to read any. I did, however, get one new book in February, and that was Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeanette. This is a book I'd wanted to read for a while, and I started a new job in February, and it happens that the company I work for also own Angry Robot, who published this book. One of the staff perks is that each month you can get 2 books for free. So far I've only taken 1 book, and I chose to get this one because there was a copy hanging around, and I thought with a no pressure month, no books already, then this was the time to take it. So that's a book that I received in February, and I will come back into it in a minute because I read it in March. February was manic with starting the new job and just various other things that were going on. I read lots of bits of different books but didn't actually finish any, so there wasn't much of a video to make there. In March I got a couple of books as well. First of all is Lord of Secrets by Breanna Teintze. This is a proof copy. It doesn't come out until July this year, and that's a wee bit shiny, but it kind of gives you an idea of the cover. It says, "Magic is poison, secrets are power, and death is complicated." I didn't really know much about this book, but the publisher, which is Joe Fletcher Books, tweeted about it and said anyone interested in reading should get in touch, and I thought it sounded cool, so I did. So really pleased to receive this one. I read it last week in April, so I will talk about this very soon, but I absolutely loved it. If you want a fantasy novel with sarcastic characters, lots going on all the time, it was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it, and I will talk more about it soon. The next book that I received in March was Tangleweed and Brine. This is by Deirdre Sullivan. And I think it's a collection of fairy tale retellings. This was a birthday present from my friend Jean, whose channel you probably know. It is Jean's Bookish Thoughts, and I will link to that in the description as well. I don't know much about it, but it has lots of incline drawing illustrations in it, and it's a lovely textured naked hardback. It's really, really nice. It was a winner of the Irish Book Awards in 2017, so that sounds like a promising start, and I'm hoping to read that soon. Also in March, Gollancz had an evening where they invited bloggers and other people in the book trade along to a preview of books that they have got coming out this spring and summer and later in the year. They had quite a few proofs, but there was a mad rush to get them, and I came away with one of the ones that I was really interested in, and that is Ancestral Night by Elizabeth Bear. I've heard brilliant things about Elizabeth Bear's fantasy writing and sci-fi. She's been writing in the genre for a very long time, and I had never got around to reading anything of hers, so I thought I would take the opportunity to start with this one. I am going to head to NetGalley at some point as well and track down some of those other books that I thought sounded really cool and I didn't manage to get a hold of, because there was some really cool stuff coming from Gollancz later this year. I'm really grateful to be invited and looking forward to getting into that book. So that was 4 books, which means that I have to read 8 over February and March, theoretically. I didn't quite make my 8, but I will go through what I did read. So the first book I read in March was Blood and Sugar by Laura Shepherd Robinson. I was given this book at the Gardeners Trade Show in the autumn. Gardeners are a distributor. They own the website Hive, which is a bookshop online, and they stock a lot of independent bookshops. And in the autumn they had a fair where publishers could show off their books. Lots of booksellers came along. This is published by Mantle, a branch of Pan Macmillan, and came out earlier this year. It is set in London in 1781 and is about the slave trade. I know Britain's involvement in the slave trade in general, but I don't know much about the particulars of what London was like at that time. So it was very grim reading, because one man is trying to solve his friend's murder, and it's all tangled up in the friend having been anti-slavery, and this man having to go around and talk to lots of people who are very much pro-slavery and making a lot of money from it, and try and find out what happened to his friend. So it's quite dark, and it was interesting in places, but overall I didn't really like it. I felt like the pacing wasn't quite right. I didn't feel like I was that fussed on finding out what happened next. There was nothing pulling me along, making me want to turn the next page. It was just like, well, I do want to know what happened to the friend, but I'm not that bothered about the way this person is investigating, what all these little things going on are. It just didn't grab me. I did push through and finish it, but it was another one of those books that made me feel like, why am I slogging through this book bit by bit when there are things that I could be really enjoying reading on my shelf of many books that are left over. So yeah, not massively impressed with that. That's going in the rehome pile. The next book I read, I've mentioned in planned reading lists recently of things I wanted to get to, and that is Pages & Co. by Anna James. This is a middle grade book. It is about a girl called Tilly who discovers that she can travel into books. I always loved stories of books coming to life and things like that, so I was really interested in this, and it didn't disappoint. It was a really nice, warm story about what happens as Tilly discovers this new ability of hers, and the problems that one can encounter when wandering into books. It was really, really nice. It was quite a quick read, and I will be keeping an eye out for the sequel. Hopefully I can get the sequel from my library once it's available. I believe that she might still be writing it at the moment though, so I'm not sure how long we have to wait for book 2. But anyway, that was really nice. I then read one of the Penguin classics. You can see it's a really tiny thing. This is an excerpt from the writing of Marco Polo, and it's about him being in the Far East and writing about what he's finding there. It was really interesting. It was a nice, quick read, and I enjoyed that and recommended it. But again, this is a book that's moving on to a new home now. I then read Graceling by Kristen Cashore. This book has been on my TBR pile for ages. I'm glad that I finally got to it. I really enjoyed it. This is fantasy. It's a world where most people can't do magic, but every now and then there is someone who can do a certain type of magic, and they call it a grace. It's like someone has a particular affinity for something. So you might be graced with cooking or dancing or fighting, and the main character, who is called Teintze, has a grace for killing. She's known that since she was quite little, when she accidentally hurt someone quite badly. As the niece of the king, I believe, she's then raised in the royal household to be a pet assassin for the king, essentially. This book starts as she's really starting to become quite reluctant about doing things like that, and she and some of her friends are secretly trying to rescue a man who's been kidnapped. There's then a plot of why was this man kidnapped, and what could she and her friends do about it. It's really, really exciting. I did feel like it came to a good conclusion in this one, but I believe that it is the first in a series of 4 or something like that. There are definitely subsequent books set in the same world, and while Teintze's story for the most part wraps up quite well in this book, I'm really looking forward to reading about the other things that happen in this world soon. Next up was The Witches of Cambridge by Menna van Praag. This is published by Allison and Busby, who I used to work for. They published quite a few of Menna's, and I believe that it's either her first or second book that she wrote that they publish. It is set in Cambridge, and it's about a group of witches who all have an assortment of powers, and what goes wrong when one of them decides to cast a love spell. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but it was actually a really sweet story. It made me tear up on the train a couple of times because one of the characters was widowed a few years ago and is starting to get back to her old life and reclaim herself and stop being in mourning and staying inside all the time. And that was just quite a touching plotline. It's a nice, fairly speedy read, and nice, enjoyable light book for reading on the train in my lunch breaks, so I did enjoy that. And then the final book that I read in March, as I mentioned, was Under the Pendulum by Jeanette. I had really been looking forward to reading this. I'd heard lots of good things about it, and I've heard Jeanette speak on a few panels when I was at Nine Worlds. and at other events. It's set in kind of a Victorian period, and it's about missionaries going to somewhere new to convert people to Christianity, except rather than going to some far-flung corner of the British Empire, these people are going to fairyland. Catherine, the main character, goes to fairyland in search of her brother, who has been there for a little while and has stopped replying to any letters, so she's quite worried about him. They get there and dark things are afoot. He's not there. The Fae are trying to play tricks on everyone. She's confined to the castle that he's been given, and there's a lot of menacing feelings, and we're repeatedly told that all is not as it seems. So Catherine is trying to navigate this new place, figure out what on earth is going on, where is her brother, and what do they do now. For the most part, I liked it. There was an aspect, a thing that happens within it that I hadn't heard about as being something in there. In the many reviews and stuff I've seen of this book, I wasn't expecting it at all, and I didn't really like it very much, and I know that's being super vague, but it's quite spoilery. If you've read it, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you made of that particular aspect. Yeah, I'd love to know if you know what I'm talking about, if that's something too vague, and what you thought of that thing to do with relationships that come up within the book. So anyway, I did enjoy it. I'm really glad to have read it. I don't know if there is a sequel, but the ending kind of leaves a lot still to happen, I felt like. So if more comes along, I will probably read it. And yeah, those are all the books that I read in February and March. Having started from zero again at the beginning of February in terms of how many books I need to read, I now am left with 2 still to read, carried over from March into April, so that's where I'm starting from there, but I think that I can do that without any problems and hopefully cut a bit more into my TBR pile as well. I've still got a few short books hiding in there and some other stuff that I'm excited to get to. So I will see you again soon with another Booktube video. Bye!